You're listening to Theater in College Hoops. I am Subi. Alongside me, as always, my trusty partner, Taylor Dammel. We're brought to you by Belly Up Media. Go download, subscribe, rate, and review us on whichever device it is that you use. Your college hooper of the day, Scott Skiles from Michigan State. Scott Skiles, Taylor, is another guy kind of like Mitch Kupchak, who was last week's or the college hooper of the day last week. I don't really I don't really recognize him as a college basketball player, but he was Big Ten Player of the Year. I recognize him obviously as an NBA player and, of course, as an NBA coach. I think Scott Skiles still has the record for most assists in an NBA game with 20 some odd, which is insane. But Scott Skiles, he went to Michigan State, won Big Ten Player of the Year. He's your college hooper of the day. And again, that should let you know and lead you on to our predictions later in this episode. We're going Big Ten, baby. I'm excited for this one. Arguably the best conference in America. Check out the website at theaterincollegehoops.com and make sure to follow me at CVB Theater to find out where the theat is. You should also follow Taylor at Taylor Namel. Let's open the curtains. Taylor, I'm going to kick us off, okay, with some breaking news. Some breaking news in my personal life. All right. Don't get that excited. I didn't mean to lead you on like that, but I've cut the cord. All right. I have cut the cord. I am cableless. I am now off of cable, strictly internet. You're looking at a YouTube TV guy.
I'm not sure I can support that.
Are you disappointed in me?
I'm a little bit disappointed. I feel like now every time I text you about sports, I'm going to have to wait like 30 seconds to make sure I'm not spoiling anything you're watching.
I think that's an antiquated myth. I do. Taylor.
I don't think so. I don't listen. Here, I'm going to argue with you right away off the bat. I have YouTube TV for NFL Sunday Ticket. And I have DirecTV at my house. And I can tell you that on the TVs that I have DirecTV and on the TVs I have Sunday Ticket, I could tell you what's going on from the kitchen about 20 seconds before what's going on in the living room. So that's my personal experience, and I'm not saying that's going to be your experience. I'm not trying to cable shame you, stream
that's
shame
okay.
you.
The shark shaming is already.
Okay, good. Okay, then maybe I'll go a little harder then. But I can already tell you that there is a lag or a delay, even so. Especially as a guy who live sport or live bet on everything, and that is just a disaster with YouTube TV.
That's true.
I can tell you that. I can tell you that for sure. For sure.
So there's let me take you behind the curtain to my rationale. Okay. I have Xfinity. I'm telling you, there's levels to this.
Let's get into a mind of a
I have Xfinity, you have DirecTV. Maybe DirecTV, and I never had an issue with lag as it related to cable. I was getting texts watching on cable, watching on Xfinity, being delayed. Like I would get texts about a major home run or a great play in a basketball game, and it would come 8 to 9 seconds. So there's already a lag there. I'm not paying for that. I'm not going to get spit roasted on my cable bill if I'm still experiencing a lag. So let's say there is like that 8 to 9 second lag that I'll be getting no matter what with YouTube TV versus cable. And I'm telling you, that's my personal experience with Xfinity. Point goes to YouTube TV because it's cheaper to pay for that lag, right?
And I don't get Pac-12 anyway. Like, so you already leg up on that. So,
or
do you get Pac-12?
You don't get it with YouTube TV, but I did have it in my.
Jesus Christ!
Hang on, man. Hang on. Here's the deal: we are moving to a new conference. All right, we're going to be on real networks, so I might have to endure somehow this season, or I can just ask you for your Pac-12 login. That's what I'll probably do. But point goes to YouTube TV. Additionally, Taylor, I'm telling you, I'm still on the trial for YouTube TV. I've yet to receive a text or anything that has been delayed. Now, I don't know if we've corresponded on any sports here this past weekend, but I haven't experienced a delay. And if I have to put my phone down for about 5 to 10 seconds, that's going to have to be something that I do. But another point for YouTube TV, I can go split screen, man. Sunday night, I was watching Twins Astros and
True. True. I'll give you this. I'll give you this. Yes.
I was watching Cowboys Niners. It was awesome. Like, I don't know if I'm going to not ever do split screen. Some people just don't like the split screen versus the full screen. So anyway, I hit on the price point. I hit on the experience, the lag, maybe. Now, of course, what happened, Taylor, today during the day, luckily, but during the day, internet goes out for the entire block. So at that point, but then at that point, I just throw on 5G. And I suppose I'd have to go on my phone.
So neither the Shark nor I are ever going to your house for like a Super Bowl or like a Final Four or anything like that.
Oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine for a Super Bowl.
That's what they all say.
I should be okay for a Super Bowl. Final Four. No, all those should be just fine. I'm telling you, I'm really excited.
Are you just a corporate shill, just corporate sheep now? Come on.
You guys are living in the past, man. Here's what happened. I cannot justify spending the bill that I was spending for terrible service, for my internet going out. I suppose I'm still doing my internet.
Xfinity does suck. Xfinity has sucked everywhere. So that is, I will give you that.
But I'm way too lazy, Taylor, to find some company that services my location. Like, I'm not that married to the cable companies. So I feel like I've ridden the shackles. I'm a free damn man, and I cannot wait to dive into this YouTube TV experience.
So YouTube TV has been pretty good for Sunday Ticket. I will definitely say that. My complaint, and it's not necessarily a streaming specific, like a service specific complaint, is not what I'm getting at. It's been that everybody thought they were all cool and high and mighty by cutting the cord, and they were going to save so much money, and now it's way more damn expensive to have 17 different streaming services to watch everything that everybody wants to watch. That was always my complaint, where it's like, oh yeah, you guys think you're so cool. Not you, because you just did it, and I know why you did it, okay? But like 5 years ago, when it was like, oh, you guys are such, again, corporate sheep, you're sticking with this. We're gonna go off and do this Hulu and Netflix for $4 and $9 a month. Now it's like you're paying $250 a month for your Amazon Prime, Hulu, Fubu,
Fubu.
You know,
Damon
Echo,
John.
yeah, Stroke, Smoke. No, of all these streaming services that have now become more expensive, in totality than having cable. So that's always been my complaint at its basis, is that everyone thought that they were getting out ahead of everything. But if you're a sports fan, there was never going to be a way to cheaply get around all of this, right? You were always going to have to pay. I have 17 burner email accounts just to get Pac-12 Network for free every year. Okay, and I'm not ashamed to admit that. They all have the same password. Everyone I know probably could hack into all of them, really. And so I'm just saying that, like, the thing that always drove this for me, my distaste for it, was that everyone thinking they were outsmarting the system, as if the system didn't know that they were going to get money.
We're going to try and outsmart.
Yeah, right. Like, it's $20 a month for Netflix now. It's $15 a month for Hulu now. It's $15 a month for you. Like, we're just back to a point where it's just more expensive anyway.
So
I'm just saying. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
No, I hear that.
I'm not. Yeah.
I don't care about the streaming stuff, so I can live without. I don't know if I can live without Netflix. I can live without HBO Max. I don't know if my wife.
Oh yeah,
we don't even have Hulu. Everyone has Amazon Prime now because Thursday Night Football decided to go to Amazon Prime. So that's something we're all in the same boat with. All right. So I looked at my bill, and maybe it's because I genuinely think, Taylor, being a customer of Xfinity and being billed what I was being billed pushed me over the ledge. I'm sure there's lesser of like 5 or 6 cable company evils out there. Like, I had no issues with Cox. Sometimes they would shit the bed, but the price point was decent. It was super up to speed, and I just felt fine with Cox Cable. But Xfinity's garbage. I don't care to see if Comcast comes out here. Or no, Xfinity is Comcast, right? I don't know. Just, it seems so much cleaner and easier with YouTube TV. And I think the only real obstacle I'm going to have is the lag, which I don't think is that much. I really don't. Maybe you and I can test it out, but with my core group of friends that I text, which does include you, I don't think it's that bad. And what I'm going to be paying monthly is perfect. It has all the other shows as well, like and channels that I need. Pac-12, we're going to be disassociating with in a
Who
year, and
cares? Who
I'm
cares?
hoping Arizona. I think Arizona is good enough where they're going to get majority of their games on real cable networks. Sure, if I have trouble finding a game in Oregon State in Corvallis, so be it.
We'll figure it out.
I'll figure
We'll
it out.
also figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that'll be an ad hoc thing. But yeah, Taylor, I've cut the cord completely. I'm excited for this new chapter of my life. Judging by your face, it looked as if you thought I was going to be delivering some more poignant, serious,
No, this is serious. For
real
our
news.
lives, for
Okay.
our lives, this is serious. I mean, we have a college basketball podcast where, being up on the times, let's call it, is the thing. So I'm way more stubborn on this, as we've already figured out. Location is important. Like you said, I have, Cox cable or Cox internet is still what I have. DirecTV, why I like DirecTV is we have a whole bunch of now wireless boxes that go to all of our TVs. I think I have 7 TVs mounted in my house currently, and they all have a wireless DirecTV box, which I think is great. So that means I can watch them all across everything. I did dislike having to do YouTube TV on top of that. I will say that I'm going to blame my daughter, Dottie, for having to get Sunday ticket this year because I just simply knew that we weren't going to be out of the house as much for games. I will say that. So we're going to go ahead and bill her for that and take that out of her college fund because this is her fault, not mine. Or we could just watch the Packers look like shit on Monday night too. Whatever. That's on regular TV. That's fine. That's fine too.
Slightly better than the Patriots.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Boy. Also, what a what a changing of the guard we're going through in our
This is a
lives.
college basketball podcast, Taylor.
And yet our football teams, which are perennial at the top 5 teams in the NFL, struggling, in the words of Joe Namath. Yeah,
that's all right though. You can't win every single year. This is what I love about people talking about the Patriots and potentially the Packers. They're like, "Oh, the dynasty's over." I'm like, it's been over for about 2.5 years now. All right, maybe that one fluke Mac Jones rookie season when they went to Buffalo in the playoffs and got obliterated, but that was the final nail in the coffin.
I don't know if you'll agree with me or most of our
Titans,
listeners will
Brady
agree with me.
interception, sure.
I'll take Jordan Love all day over Mac Jones.
Mac Jones, yeah, sure, that's fine.
Yeah,
they both. I mean, we both suck though, and that's why I'm already looking forward to
Mac Jones is like 73rd game into his career. That's an exaggeration, but
absolutely. But I mean, I'm very much open to the prospect of now being a big board kind of guy in October and November, like draft board kind of guy.
We are reverse friend of the program, Ted Scrobacks, right now. Somehow he's in a renaissance. He's in a renaissance right now, and we are the ones looking forward to the draft. But I will give you this. I'm happy and accepting of the fact that you are a streaming guy now. I know that neither the Shark nor I will support that, but I am supportive of the fact that you are able to readily admit that. And I think that's big of you.
Fiscally, people change. All right. It's okay to change. You don't have to be 10 toes deep. I was presented with some information. I digested it. I literally compared the two and I said, I'm doing myself a disservice by staying with cable. So I switched to YouTube TV. Now, Taylor, this brings me to my second piece of breaking news. Okay. In my personal life, this affects you and all the theater goers. Ooh. I think I'm going to have to retire from the Theat tweets.
What?
I think I got to retire.
Whoa.
So do you have pushback on this? Like, I'm contemplating it. The reason I'm saying this, literally the first weekend of games.
It's because you're a streaming guy now and you don't have access to all the channels.
No. I have pretty much the same access. Actually, the only access I don't have is Pac-12. I have essentially the same access. Actually, no, I gained ACC and SEC network. I didn't have that with cable. So and those are actual conferences with real teams. But Taylor, it's so time consuming and exhausting And like the first weekend of the season, I'm going to be in Boston celebrating my niece's birthday. So already I'm off to a wrong foot. Like I won't be able to tweet feet on the opening weekend of college basketball. It's a lot, man. So I don't know. You tell me. Do you think I need to keep this going? Do we just lose all credibility if I don't?
Well, as some of our followers know, I did a sports newsletter every day at 4 a.m. for what, 2 years, essentially, give or take. So let's call it 1,000, probably not 1,000, just under 1,000 total newsletters that went out. And it is a lot. You have no free time to do anything because every single day of your life, no matter whether and for me, I was in Alaska at like a cabin in the middle of nowhere. And I'm out like driving 25 miles to the top of a hill to find Wi-Fi on my phone to like do this. And I'm saying it's the same thing with you too. It's tough. So, I don't know. I'm not the one who's doing it. So I'm supportive of you and what you feel like the best decision is. You're the point guard of this program and of this account, let's call it. So what if we
I'm
do
torn,
this?
man. Yeah, tell me. I'm
What
open to
if we do
compromise.
this? What if it's top 25 matchups?
So just
A
one.
team that, one of the top 25 teams. Or if you want to extrapolate on that, teams that are currently within inside whatever the bubble we decide is. That's at least narrowing it down a little bit because, quite frankly, I think people would agree with that. We don't necessarily need to know about a UC Irvine, San Jose State.
Okay. But like that's the whole reason I dove into this is so we highlighted the Southeast Missouri states and like the Longwood Lancers as opposed to UCLA
Air
and
long,
Arizona. Money long.
money long,
Yeah.
yeah.
My money will be long now that I'm saving, Taylor.
Good,
But
good. I love that.
okay, maybe I still need to I just wanted to float this out there. This is the first step because I don't like I'm just thinking about this, Taylor. If I'm not tweeting feet the very first weekend, I feel like I'm behind the 8 ball. I
Oh,
was
but
like
it's always going to be unsustainable for a long term effect here. Like you can't tweet every single basketball game
I
for the rest
can't,
of your
right?
life. Yeah, like I understand that. Like I know that. I think everybody knows that. It's just figuring out when the time. Do we hire a college intern for
Should it be
$15 an hour?
God? Who wants to come on? Seriously.
Should we put a job
I mean,
posting
Belly
out
Up
there?
does have some interns.
Do we put a job posting out there and just say, "Hey, theater in College Station tonight? Theater in Cheyenne, Wyoming?
I don't
Maybe
know.
I don't. It's something to
It's tough to
explore."
decide. Yeah. So maybe not top 25 matchups, but national or not nationally televised games, but games that are on every game that's on a network that's not ESPN Plus. Because I'm telling you, folks, if you look at the slate on a daily basis, there's so many games on ESPN Plus. But I'm talking about what if I tweet
125 of them pretty much every year. Right.
What if I tweet feet about games that are on all the major networks and then the conference networks as well?
Games that matter. That's pretty ambiguous right there.
But it's not just games that matter.
I'm supportive of it. I'm supporting you in saying that.
But it's not just games that matter. Like we could have Minnesota Rutgers on Big Ten Network, and I would be tweeting that.
Well, that game kind of matters. It's a Big Ten game.
Well, what do you see? What do you mean by matters then?
Well, like nobody cares. Sorry, San Jose State and.
But if San Jose State's on FS1, I'm going to be tweeting about it.
Okay, like yeah, I don't. Yeah,
are you okay with that?
You need to figure out. Okay, you need to come up with some guidelines of how you feel comfortable about this. I'm always going to be supportive of what you decide to do here, and in the long run, I'm just saying I want to make sure that you can go to bed at night and sleep with when you lay your weary head on that pillow of yours, that you're not leaving people out of what they need to see in the college basketball world. If you're comfortable with that, I'm comfortable with that. I'm just saying you need to make sure.
Taylor, can I go to
turn the lights off? Turn the lights off in a room. Light a couple candles. Really think about who matters in the college basketball world. And if you're comfortable with that decision making, then I'm comfortable with it.
I don't know if I'll be able to go to sleep not tweeting about Kansas City versus like South Dakota. And the two
Is that a
people
Jackrabbit reference you just made right there, by the way?
is Kansas City the Jackrabbits?
Yeah,
No,
they are.
South Dakota State's the Jackrabbits. South Dakota is like
Okay.
the Grizzlies or something like that. Montana Grizzlies. Oh gosh. All right. But what needs to be known and messaged is that there will be less theater tweets this upcoming season. I can guarantee you that if there is a Q4 game between two Q4 teams on ESPN Plus, and it's a one possession game, I hate to say it, folks, I don't know if I have the bandwidth to do it this season.
Yeah,
So,
listen. Whatever you do, whatever decision you make, I'm happy with. I just want you to sleep well at night. Is all I'm getting at.
that's why I love you. All right, T, let's move on into our Big Ten preview. I've shattered the bedrock of this show enough as is. Big Ten, though, I'm so excited to dive into this conference, Taylor. I was looking at the teams and I'm looking at some of the projections. I'm looking at the rosters, looking at the coaches, looking at potential standings. And the only thing that comes to my mind, and it's much like last year, I suppose, and even the year previous, is maybe it's not the best conference in the sense that we're going to get 3 Final Four teams or we're going to get a national champion out of this conference, but we're going to get a lot of tournament teams, and they're probably going to beat up on each other and route to the tournament and also in the tournament. I'm looking at this slate, Taylor. I'm looking at these standings, and I think Michigan is a bubble team, and they're like the third from the worst. I think the only 2 teams worse than Michigan are Minnesota and Penn State. Penn State going through a coaching overhaul, roster turnover. Minnesota just is not a good basketball program. I'm sorry to Ben Johnson, but then you have Michigan in my eyes, and I think they're a bubble team. This conference is deep as hell. Am I alone in that thinking?
I would say that they're not quite as deep as you would think that they are. And maybe it's just because they have, excuse me, maybe just because the Big Ten suddenly has like less teams than a lot of the other conferences we're talking about, considering we're talking about conferences that now have like 20 teams and stuff like that. So maybe I'm biased in the sense that like I look at an ACC, like, oh, there's like 18 teams in that conference or whatever. And like, oh, well, why aren't there 12 tournament teams from the Big Ten? Well, because there aren't, a significant amount of teams there. So I would say that I am worried. I'm glad you brought it up. I would be concerned about a team like Michigan and Juwan Howard's absence or whatever we're talking about at this point. I think that a good question for you is one that we've talked about every episode so far, and that is there a Final Four team from the Big Ten?
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what I said a couple of minutes ago, but if you were to judge a conference on whether or not they could have a national champion or a Final Four team, Big Ten actually does have 2 of those teams in my eyes. So yes, Taylor, I do think there will be a team from the Big Ten in the Final Four, potentially even a national title winner.
Whoa.
I don't think it's that out of the realm of possibility. I think there's 2 serious ones.
Is it a tall task? Let's call it the team that you're picking to potentially go to this Final Four.
Yeah, it is. They have a tall guy, and then the other one, we'll probably get into him and talk
The
about.
other team might go hog wild, perhaps, to get to the Final Four. Perhaps
hog
maybe.
wild. What's the comparison there?
A guy's name that's on that team.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that took me a minute. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe I can walk my thoughts back.
Oh, okay.
That's a Hail Mary. But yeah, Michigan State and Purdue, man, I definitely think that those 2 are Final Four contenders and potentially national title winners. What about you?
Yeah, I would say yes. I think that since we've already talked about the teams, it had like the Boilermakers have to break through at some point. Like they have to, right? We're 7 consecutive years, even though we haven't had a podcast for that long, in being like, this team has to break through, right? They have a guy who has been the consensus or a consensus All-American and a potential National Player of the Year for several years now. Like, it has to happen. It had, and they were such a good team last year with freshman guards that are now not freshman guards. It has to happen, right? Like, it has to. Tell me why it's not going to happen. I don't know. It has to happen.
I agree. The tournament's ruthless, though. But if I'm applying what I've been saying about Rick Barnes and not letting preconceived notions impact and dictate how I feel about his teams, I have to do the same thing with Matt Painter and Purdue. Now, again, it's all about matchups. Who knows what's going to happen in the NCAA tournament? But I'm not souring off of Purdue just because they lost to Fairleigh Dickinson. I think that's a fool's errand. But Taylor, speaking of folks like Tom Izzo and Matt Painter, let's dive in to our Big Ten Coach of the Year predictions. Who is your choice?
I'm going maybe a little bit off of what I've said in previous episodes. I think Izzo is going to run it back with a Coach of the Year here. Not run it back, I should say, but most of the previous episodes we've talked about predictions. It's been coaches who are on the rise, voter fatigue, as we've talked about. I think it's another Izzo year here. I think that they have, like as we just discussed, a team that can pretty much go all the way, or at least be a 1 seed, or however we want to phrase that, compete for the conference title. And for some reason, and tell me that I'm wrong in this, do people just not have voter fatigue for Izzo? Is he just more likable than these other coaches that are in the same situation?
I think he
Like,
is.
right? I don't think I'm wrong in saying that. Where he feels like we just all continue to root for this guy from a college basketball wide perspective. That we all like Tom Izzo for the most part, and we're going to get into a couple of the things that he said today or yesterday at the Big Ten Media Day. But I feel like there's just not the fatigue for Tom Izzo as there is in other conferences, despite the fact that he's made as many or more Final Fours than everybody else. He has a national championship. His teams are always there at the end of the day. We have a constant argument on this program, no matter it's whether you, me, or whoever else is on this program, about when they lose their 3 of their first 8 games of the year. And I'm not sure that's going to happen this year, although they do play our alma mater early in the season, Thanksgiving
Yes.
Day.
Thanksgiving
Yeah,
Day. Vegas.
and
Or no,
yeah,
Palm Springs. Palm Springs.
Palm Springs, basketball mecca of the West Coast, Palm Springs. I didn't even know they had like an arena there, but
I just thought it
I
was
feel
the
like,
Indian Wells tournament. Sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, right, exactly, outside. I feel like there's just not the voter fatigue for Tom Izzo, and I feel like this year, I think Matt Painter being good again, which is what they're going to be. I feel like it's almost going to be reverse voter fatigue, where it's like, dude, you've been supposed to be good and go to the Final Four for like 3 years in a row. Why haven't you done that yet? I feel like it's just Izzo. I'm not sure like Greg Gard is likable enough to get the votes. I'm just trying to think of other candidates of teams that might be good in this conference. I don't know. I'm kind of going to go with the old guard, no Greg Gard, in Tom Izzo on this one.
So I'm going to push back on the Izzo fatigue a little bit. I think it's just generally the way he speaks and the way he acts. Most Americans, I feel like, can feel that they can appreciate that. So him and John Calipari have pretty similar resumes in terms of how many times they've been to the NCAA tournament, how many titles or NCAA tournament Final Fours, how many titles they've won. People hate John Calipari because he's brash. He's got the slick back hair. He empowers young student athletes to basically just say, "Come one and done." I don't really care about graduation rates. What I'm here to do, and what he says is, I'm not here to win national championships. He essentially says this: I'm here to develop these young guys and get them to be a John Wall, a Michael Kidd Gilchrist, right? A top 5 pick, a DeMarcus Cousins. That's what I'm here to do for you if you come to Kentucky. And folks don't necessarily like that. Folks don't necessarily like that John Calipari is embracing the one and done, or he pioneered it. He's embracing the transfer portal, and he's basically saying, we need to treat these kids like employees. People love that Tom Izzo talk about things like graduation rate. And again, we're going to get to all of that because he had some comments on the transfer rules. They love what he says about the transfer portal. They love that he's old school, that he's nitty gritty. They love that after a 3-person pile up on the ground, he's like halfway to the free throw line with neck veins popping out. They love all of that. They love that he's a Midwestern coach in the Big Ten that like employs football tactics. They love all of that stuff, Taylor. So generally speaking, at a high level, I think that's why Tom Izzo isn't talked about like a choke artist when he gets to the Final Four. People love him as opposed to like, oh, it's easy to dump on John Calipari. So I don't think there's fatigue there, but I do think people are saying like Tom Izzo has graduated from Big Ten Coach of the Year. It's almost like a second year player who's clearly a stud. Like if Paolo Banchero won Most Improved Player of the Year in the NBA, we'd be like that award's beneath him. So I think that's the same with Izzo. Sure. And I think Painter is voter fatigue. And to your point, like, dude, nobody cares about Big Ten titles anymore. Nobody cares about Big Ten coaches of the year.
Is it even voter fatigue? Is it reverse voter fatigue?
Maybe.
Yeah. Not that there's a definition for that, but
I think they're just saying you got to go to a Final Four, man. Like, do that, and we'll close the book on any discourse surrounding you. I haven't even given my pick, though. My pick, Taylor, and this might be going a little bit too far out on the limb, Mike Woodson. All right, I'm going to go with Indiana's Mike Woodson. So much change and roster turnover that I think people are going to appreciate what a good job he's going to do. They lose Trace Jackson Davis. They lose Miller. Do you want to be a cop or do you want to appear to be a cop? They lose Jalen Hood-Schifino, who's on the Lakers right now. Fino gone. Race Thompson, who was there forever. Tamar Bates transferred, and Jordan Geronimo, he's gone as well. So that's a lot of contributors, especially TJD, that you have to replace. So who does he have to rely on? And this is where the biggest risk comes for me. But I'm looking to take it. He's gonna have to rely so much on Kel'el Ware. And the biggest thing with Ware is, and this is no secret, it's his motor. Nobody talks about his potential. Nobody talks about his talent. It's all there. Nobody talks about how good he can be. It's, can you give me a motor for 40 minutes? I don't even know if Mike Woodson knows that as we record this podcast. He made some comments the other day, but he's going to have to rely on Ware. And I do believe Kel'el Ware is going to embrace this change of scenery coming from Oregon to Bloomington. Now, Xavier Johnson, Trey Galloway, they're going to have to assume huge leadership roles. Xavier Johnson's going to have to take the TJD. Trey Galloway is going to have to take the Miller Cop. I'm not just saying that based off of, like play style or anything like that. They're just now the upper echelon and vocal veteran leaders. So I talked about Painter and Izzo. Now let me get to the process of the other elimination. All right. I picked a couple of second-year head coaches, so I can't do that with Kevin Willard, although Maryland's going to go to the tournament in my estimation. So that leaves Underwood and Greg Gard. I've done the Greg Under. You want to talk about fatigue, man. Since we started this, I was on the Underwood train from the get-go. And has he won a tournament game at Illinois? I don't know just yet. So I don't think he has. So I'm out on Underwood, and that would leave Greg Gard, who maybe I just have a vendetta against Wisconsin, but I think Wisconsin's going to bounce back and be a tournament team. However, on a more serious and rational note, I truly believe that it goes Purdue, it goes Michigan State, slight drop off, but Purdue, slight drop off, Michigan State, and then you get to about 5 teams that are so jumbled. And I really do think Indiana can get to like the 4th, or if they're really good, a 3rd line in the Big Ten. So you talk about Illinois, Wisconsin, Maryland, Indiana, hey, even Northwestern, they're all pretty even to me. So can Indiana be better than Maryland, Wisco, Illinois, and Northwestern? I think so. And if they do, and if they are, Mike Woodson's going to be Big Ten Coach of the Year because folks are going to recognize what he had to replace and still put out an NCAA tournament team. It's a high risk, but also a high reward with this pick. I'd also say don't sleep on Chris Holtmann. I think there's a lot of nefarious and bad words going around about Chris Holtmann. He can still coach.
So this is a conference that has really a lot of coaching depth in terms of the amount of time that they've been there. We've talked about other conferences having coaches that have 3 or 4 new ones. It it's almost crazy to think that, like, Greg Gard, this is, like, his 8th or ninth year at the helm of Wisconsin, a guy that we would probably consider as a new coach, maybe? Like, just from without looking at not new,
I
but you
just
know what
think
I'm
because
saying?
we're no, I agree with you. I just think we're so used to Bo Ryan still
Right.
somehow.
Yeah, and, like, even Juwan Howard has been there for 4 or 5 years, and that's a guy that's supposed to be, like, a new up-and-coming kid on the block type of deal, and so this got a lot of coaching depth in this conference. The only new coach this year is Mike Rhodes for Penn State, and I'm
Tough,
not gonna
tough hand
not
to be dealt.
not gonna pick them for
No.
anything. Um, so it's a lot of voter fatigue all the way around in the sense, or maybe not voter fatigue is the way to put it, but we're all very comfortable. We all know these coaches, whether we are willing to admit that they aren't that new or not. And I think the Woodson pick's totally fine, essentially because Indiana and their fan base and really the media in a lot of ways is always yearning to get Indiana back into the fold, back into the national discussion. They are they the Nebraska football,
They're
essentially, of
better than
this?
Nebraska.
Okay,
They've
they are.
they've been to a Sweet 16
They
recently.
are, but you understand the concept of what I'm trying to say is that,
Got
like,
it. Yeah.
the fans that nationally, we're all yearning, like, the sport is better when Indiana's good, when Nebraska's good, so on and so forth. So, I like the Woodson pick. Michigan State is going to be better than Indiana, I think, in both of our opinions. Obviously, we both stated that. And
Definitely.
Izzo hasn't won a Coach of the Year, which is kind of we talked about with Coach K on the ACC episode. Izzo hasn't won a Coach of the Year since 2012, and
Legendary Hall of Fame
it's like
coaches,
at
you just
some
stay away from
point,
them.
yeah,
Yeah,
at
I
some
guess.
point,
I
like,
get your rationale. Yeah.
and Matt Painter, Matt Painter's won 4. Matt Painter has won. Let's look at it this way: Matt Painter and Bo Ryan have both won more Coaches of the Year in the Big Ten than
Is
Tom
that
Izzo.
more like sympathy awards for those guys or just fatigue for Izzo and co? Because obviously Tom
Well,
Izzo's one of the
but at
greatest head
some
coaches
point, like,
ever
it can't be fatigue if you haven't
anymore.
voted him more
Voted
than
for
other
him. Right.
people, right? Tom Crean, Mark Turgeon, Richard Pitino, excuse me, Greg Gard, Juwan Howard, Greg Gard again, Chris Collins. These guys have all won Coaches of the Year since the last time that Izzo has. So even though I'm going kind of reverse of what I said on other episodes, I feel like at some point, especially because Michigan State maybe, maybe hasn't been as good as we've expected them to be over a 5-year span recently. Maybe this year, them returning to like a number 1 seed type of team would be the opportunity for Izzo to return to having a Coach of the Year award.
Few other items I just want to unpack really quickly, Taylor. I think what we're looking at, it's not fatigue, it's faux fatigue. It's the fact that Tom Izzo, how many Final Fours has he been to since
Yeah,
2012?
we're
Everyone's no,
overusing voter fatigue, and
but
that's
what
not
I'm saying,
exactly
it's
what
a
we're trying to
faux
say.
fatigue, though. No, it's a
Right,
faux
right.
fatigue.
Yeah,
It's
no, I'm with
it's
you.
that Tom Izzo's been to a Final Four like 3 years ago. He was awesome 2 years ago. They beat who did they beat Marquette, who won the Big East last year. So this must mean that Tom Izzo is the best coach in the Big Ten. This must mean that he won an award last year. So as we enter this season, we think about all those results from the past, like very recently, we're saying to ourselves, Tom Izzo must have won it. Like, let's pick someone else. When in reality, that's not the case. So that's one thing. I think it's faux fatigue. The next thing I want to talk about, just real quick, before you hyenas get down my throat, when I mentioned Kevin Willard and a second year head coach, obviously he's not a second year head coach, but it's his second year at Maryland. Same thing with Todd Golden at Florida, who I picked to win SEC Coach of the Year. And then ACC Coach of the Year, John Shire, is a true second year head coach. So I'm not an idiot, you hacks. Get off my back. And then last but not least, Gabe Cupps on Indiana. I don't know how much he's going to contribute, but I feel like I've been watching Gabe Cupps highlights since like he was in 5th grade. I feel like those have been on all different Twitter platforms and websites. Am I incorrect in saying that? Like, does Gabe Cupps not ring a bell to you, or it does?
Yeah,
It
no,
should,
no,
right?
totally. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. He's in college now, man. So
Well,
we're
and
old.
to your point, to put a bow on this a little bit, bracketology has Indiana as a bubble team, like a
Hmm.
last 4 in, and I feel like they
I think they're going to be better
might
than
be
that.
better than that. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. All right, let's move on now. Taylor, player of the year. Who is on your ballot?
I mean, is there anything
Chalk
other than this
Damel
guy?
over here.
Anything other than this guy is just a hot take, right?
I'm about to give you a hot take. Go ahead.
Are you?
Tell
Okay, I'm
me.
gonna go. I'm gonna go
Go
Zach
ahead,
Edey.
Taylor.
Then.
Tell me why it's Mason Gillis. Okay, fine. Zach Edey. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's Zach Edey, right? I mean, do we even need to explain why it is? He's the biggest
You don't
dude
have to.
he's the biggest person on the planet Earth, essentially. A guy that is just a walking double double. Defending player of the year. I'd like to spend a lot of time on this, but there's really no reason to because he's a consensus All-American, consensus conference player of the year. Not consensus, actually. There is one person at Big Ten Media Day that voted for someone else, but everybody else voted for him. I'd like to be hot take guy here, but I don't think there is a reason to be a hot take guy here. So I'm going to roll with Zach Edey at Purdue. But I feel like from your facial expressions that the listeners can't see right now that you're going to go with someone maybe that leads up a team from my conference, coach of the year, perhaps.
Is he going to go with Keisei Tominaga? No, he is not. Is he going to go with Peyton Sanford? Absolutely not. No. Anyone else from Purdue? No. Doug McDaniel from Michigan? No. I'm going to go with Michigan State's Tyson Walker. Look, this is a tall task. I know he most.
So you were the one guy at Big Ten Media Day today, or what?
Bro, if I had Big Ten media credentials, you would be the first to know. But wait, did that guy? Do we know if that guy went Tyson Walker?
There's one guy did. There were
Okay.
28 media members there. 27 voted for Edey. One Tyson Walker. So you're not alone.
I stand with that guy. I stand with that guy. Yes, Tyson Walker. It is going to be difficult to beat out Zach Edey, but I think if the perfect storm of events occur, we're going to get there. All right. Can Tyson Walker lead Michigan State to a top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament? I believe he can. I am a sucker for backcourts, Taylor. So I think Tyson Walker is going to be the leader, but he's got AJ Hoggard next to him. All right. And that is going to be, I don't know if there's a better backcourt in the conference than AJ Hoggard and Tyson Walker. This is going to be his 3rd year in East Lansing. What I know about Tyson Walker at Michigan State is that he is a monster, big shot maker. You know how we always see like Heisman moments, Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Derrick Henry, all these guys that have won the Heisman, they have their moments. I don't know if we necessarily see that with college basketball players of the year. Tyson Walker is going to have a couple of Heisman moments this upcoming year. I'm talking about buzzer beating shots. I'm talking about big defensive plays, maybe a great assist. I love this kid that much. Joey Hauser also gone. So that's going to open up more shots for Tyson. And I heard this from Big Ten Media Day, Taylor. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share this audio, and it really got me fired up. And it makes me think that he really does have this on his mind. So let me just play this audio here from Mr. Walker himself.
After we lost Kansas State, I'm like, yeah, I'm coming back. I probably told the whole team, just didn't tell coach yet.
You didn't tell me.
Yeah.
Well,
the whole team.
You're always the last to know, right? That's fitting. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to do more. I feel like I want to be remembered a little more. I feel like I haven't done enough. And I got some personal things I want to do and team goals I want to do for sure. And, if everything goes planned, maybe we win that championship, maybe my jersey could be in the rafters, So stuff like that. After we lost Kansas State.
This man is talking about personal achievements, jerseys in the rafters, team. Like, I'm all in on Tyson Walker, so he's my player of the year.
I mean, it's going to be Zach Edey, and I love that you're so confident in this. And that's not to diminish Tyson by any way, shape, or form. It's just going to be. I mean, unless Zach Edey has like an incredibly bad. I feel like Zach Edey is going to be the player of the year no matter what he puts up, unless he has like a 15-8 year. Like, it's just crazy low. That being said, I mean, there's a reason why I picked Izzo as my coach. It's not like they're going to finish 4th in the conference, in my opinion, right? Michigan State's going to be there to the end. And what does Michigan State always have when it comes to the tournament, Sue? Why are they successful? You're a sucker for
toughness.
and
Experience,
and position
point guard play,
guards. Yes,
guard
and
play.
that's
Yes.
yeah. And so
Sorry.
you
I
said
feel
it
like we're
like
off today. My bad.
you said it 5 minutes ago, so I was hoping you'd remember. So no, but I feel like he obviously is the best guard in the conference. His play is going to be superior to Purdue's guards, in my opinion. He's going to be the second best player in the conference, and so I certainly wouldn't pick against him when it comes to maybe winning the Big Ten championship or going deeper in the tournament. He has the best coach in the conference. That certainly handles guard play better than almost every coach in the country. So, I mean, it's not a extremely crazy pick by any means. You are one of 28 in this situation. I'm still taking Edey, but he's certainly an all-conference member, potentially an All-American, and as he said himself, a potential national champion as well.
That's right. No, that's fair. You're not harshing my mellow. It's good to be a little realistic. I feel like I'm a campaign manager for some young up and coming guy going up against the incumbent that has the state or his district on lock. And I'm like, no. This is our time. It's Tyson Walker's time. So I'm going to be pulling hard for old Ty there. I did really want to go with Keisei Tominaga though, but that's just I don't know if Nebraska has the facilities.
I wish you were a betting man and just threw like $10 on that just to
Tominaga, maybe I will.
Yeah, why not? $10. It's 2 beers at a bar.
Yeah,
it's 2 Coors Lights. No big deal.
Last thing I want to see out of Tyson though, I want to see him facilitate more. I think he's got to bump his scoring. I think he was like a 14-2 guy last year. I really want to see him maybe be an 18-5 guy this upcoming year because he's got to get the numbers to do it. I think they'll have the winning, the intangibles, and all of that on lock, and all those components for National Player of the Year. He's got to bump up those stats, right? Matthew McConaughey and in Wolf of Wall Street. Let's pump those numbers up.
I mean, not surprisingly, Michigan State has some of the better or the best outside of Mackenzie and Bacco from Indiana. They have the best recruits in the conference with Xavier Booker at center. And excuse me, let me scroll down a little bit. Oh yeah, Jeremy Fears and Colin Carr. He's going to have to teach some of these guys how to play, but also nothing better than a potential distributor like him to get those guys going. So Michigan State does really have a great what's the word? Dichotomy, a great mix of experience and new talent that's coming in. And he's the guy that's going to be driving it all. So I'm going to be excited to watch him. And if he can become that distributor, five assists a game, that changes that team a lot. All those guys are getting involved at that point. So that's going to be exciting to watch.
It really is. Purdue, Michigan State, I think we know that those are the top 2 dogs. Let's see if anyone can really challenge them for a moment in time for that title. And speaking of the title, Taylor, let's move on to the Big Ten champion. Who are you picking?
Boy, I had a debate with this one. I think we both did. As you know, though, I've always been a big Boilermaker for some reason for my whole life. I have no idea why. No real reason as to why. Like I said at the beginning of this program, I feel like at some point it has to let me rephrase. Let me back up. They do have the most Big Ten championships, which is the best trivia stat in the whole. The best trivia stat in the whole world. That Big Ten or that Purdue has the most Big Ten championships, and I think it's gonna happen again this year. I feel like it's them or Michigan State at this point. Not that like you said, 3 to 5 or 6 is very equal. Or could be very equal, and they're all going to be really good teams. They're all going to make the tournament, so on and so forth. I'm just going to ride with Edey though. At this point, I feel like they're just still Purdue's still sneaky somehow. I don't understand how they still are, even though they have all these stats and accolades, National Player of the Year candidates. I'm going to go with Purdue, despite the fact that Izzo is my coach of the year. I'm going your ACC route here. Not hedging my bets, though, because I think this is actually plausible that Izzo finishes second as like a 28-3 and Purdue finishes like 29-2, but Izzo still wins the coach of the year. I'm going to go with Purdue to win the conference.
I'm with you. I am in your boat, my friend. It really wasn't much of a decision or a debate, I should say, for me. I went straight to Purdue. And this was one of the first times in maybe about 5 or 6 years, Taylor, where I've heard all this stuff about the offseason, talk about Purdue. I've heard about the personnel, but this was the first time I sat down and looked at the roster. And I was like, it's the exact same team from last year. That was a 1 seed. And now you had mentioned this earlier. They don't have freshman guards. They have sophomore guards that are really good. All right. They have Fletcher Lawyer, who has grown up. They have Braden Smith, who has grown up. They have Zach Edey, who there's no point in discussing. Ethan Morton, Caleb First, Mason Gillis, Trey Kaufman Wren. You look up and down the roster, and it's funny because we're going to get into transfers. And you look at the rosters and you look at the new faces, and you get to Purdue, and you're like, it's the exact same team. There's and now on top of that, they have a burning fuel in their belly from Fairleigh Dickinson embarrassing them. And on top of that, it's not like they can be relaxed in this conference. They're going to be tested every single night, but they're going to come out on top and they're going to win the Big Ten title. But that is the first step, Taylor. That shouldn't even be a goal of theirs. I truly don't think. Like, I know maybe we'll get this with Painter and coach speak, and I know how difficult it is to win conferences. But if we're being realists here, that is such a small, like that's taking a step on your stairwell. We're over here trying to climb a mountain. All right. And I think they're more than capable of doing it. They're the one team where I you know how apprehensive I am, Taylor, about making predictions of the tournament. Purdue's going to the second round of the NCAA tournament. That's not even going out on a limb at all, but they've broken our hearts so many times that you're right. It just has to happen this time. Because if you go, Taylor, without a Final Four and Elite Eight with Zach Edey, with Jaden Ivey, I don't know what to say. It's got to be this year with the exact same team coming back.
In a world where we have decided that like the one and done and the freshman is a little less important than like the transfer or the old guy, these guys don't have transfers. They don't got recruits. Like they don't, like, I know that I'm just kind of repeating what you're saying in a different term, but like this is the same squad. They got the same people that are just running it back. They've been playing for 3 summers and 2 basketball years in a row, essentially at this point. And it's almost like we talked about with Tennessee in the SEC preview. If not this year, then when is this going to happen? They've got the best player in the country. They have the 4-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. They've got experienced guards now. They have a senior 7'43" center. Like, yeah, at this point, if it's not this year, then I'm not sure when it's ever going to happen for Purdue. And that almost scares me a little bit, though, because they're one of the schools I equate to a school like Arizona, where it should have happened already a lot, maybe more than it has. And the only reason that I would want to pick against them is just because it hasn't happened. Maybe not the conference title, because I think that we've already discussed that they have the most conference titles, but I'm talking about that topping out in the Final Four national championship. And if it's not this year, then I'm not sure when this is going to happen. I mean, it will, obviously it will, but it'll be a team that's like a 9 seed that like goes on a run, something dumb that we can't ever predict. But Zach Edey's going to average what? Is he going to be a college basketball player that averages 22 and 12 a game this year? I mean, like which in college basketball terms is those are big numbers,
Huge.
And man.
I mean, we saw it with Luka Garza like 2 years ago. I don't know if he was averaging that many rebounds, but Luka Garza is a back-to-back Big Ten Player of the Year. Like,
and Zach Edey's better suited for this like style of college basketball, in my opinion, than
he's got better players around him too.
Oh yeah, it's 100% a fuller team. Let's call it a more robust team around him. And yeah, if it's not this year, I mean, Michigan State would be the other team to do it, of course, but Yeah, and they might be almost equally as good. They're not a 1A, 1B, but a 1 and a 2, and then, like you said, the rest of them. But if it's not Purdue, then I don't know. I don't even know. Like, what do we do with Matt Painter? Not that you're gonna fire him, but that's not what I'm trying to say. But it's kind of like, what's his peak? Is his peak only Sweet 16 type of teams? That's always a tough discussion we have or to have. So yeah, long story, a lot of rambling, but it's got to be Purdue. It has to be. It has to be. Like, it just has to be.
I think that's the theme of the episode. Like, yes, it absolutely has to be. And if they don't, we're going to be sitting to ourselves like, jaw on the floor. How could this have happened? It doesn't make any sense. But that's a bridge we'll have to cross at another point. I think Purdue is just, they're too good. They're probably the best team in the country. I'll say this though. I don't know if we mentioned this. Maybe we did it in different phrasing. Taylor, I can't remember going into a season more pressure on a program and or a head coach for quite some time. There's preseason top fives. There's preseason number ones. I don't know if there's been more pressure, and it's not. And like, maybe you get pressure going into the season on a particular team or program, but there's different faces there. There's freshmen, there's transfers, there's guys that have maybe left from the previous year that and have been supplanted, and those guys now don't really know what the pressure is. Purdue, it's 90% a blessing that everyone is back from the team from last year, but there's that 10% where I'm saying, they're probably going to be like, Mason, Zach, Fletcher, get this done. And that's an immense amount of pressure on some college kids. Worth bringing up.
Oh, totally. And, if you look at some of the other teams that are supposed to be the number 1 seeds, according to bracketology, it's a Duke, it's a Kansas, whatever. You go to those schools kind of accepting of that pressure, what the expectations are. And I'm not saying that Purdue isn't a great basketball school, because it is. It's
not a blue blood. It's not a blue blood.
And I mean,
that's what you're talking about with those other schools.
Totally, which is funny because they're probably 6 wins in their whole 100-year basketball history from being a blue blood, which is kind of interesting. That's just a made up number. I don't know if that's what it is.
I hear what you're saying.
The point is right. And yeah, even Michigan State, somehow there's less pressure, even though Michigan State is always the team to beat, so to speak, in the Big Ten. Yeah, I just think it's because of that. It has to be this year, because if not, their guards are going to be still good next year. They don't have their guards are great college basketball players. They're not necessarily going to be NBA players or very good NBA players, and so they're going to be back next year, but they're not going to have a 7'14" center to anchor them. And there's going to be a lot of questions to ask next year if they don't do anything other than go to a Sweet 16. And if Zach Edey does win a Player of the Year, he will. There's almost no way he's not a first-team All-American. People are going to shove him in there no matter what at this point. So, no, I completely agree. There is a lot of pressure on him and them to get them over the hump. I mean, we're going to see Zach Edey's mom almost as much as Taylor Swift this year, I assume, in the stands.
She's way less cringeworthy, though. Give me more Zach Edey's mom. I'm fine with that.
Oh, I'm just saying that it's going to be around, and boy, it's going to be tough if they have some struggles. I will say it's going to be a mentally taxing year if they lose a couple in a row, and that's going to be tough. That'll show the mettle of this team if it does come to that.
I really don't expect them to have many struggles whatsoever.
I know. Yeah, I'm just saying that if that happens, yeah.
But you know what? That might be good for them. All right, because you know how much I hate when people make sweeping decisions about teams prior to Valentine's Day. People did it with UConn when they lost to Xavier and Creighton, I think, both on the road. And everyone was like, this team.
I did. Yep, I did. Yeah.
Look what happened. So, maybe it'll be good for Purdue to experience some. And look, that's the Big Ten. They will. Yeah. I don't expect them to have a sustained length of adversity, but they're going to have a bad week for sure, where maybe they get clipped off at a buzzer beater 2 games in a row. Who knows? But tons of pressure. So just to recap, Taylor, you're a Big Ten Coach of the Year. You're going Izzo. I'm going Mike Woodson, Big Ten Player of the Year. You're going Edey. I am going Tyson Walker. And our champ we both share is Purdue. Let's move on now to our all transfer team. But Taylor, before we do that, have you heard Tom Izzo doubling, tripling, quadrupling down on his stance regarding the NCAA transfer rules. I'm going to yield the floor to you first.
So I feel like I'm probably more in agreement with Tom Izzo than you are. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not agreeing with him. I'm just saying I'm going to be a little more on his side than you are. So the stat I want to bring up, which was in the article, is that 19% of the players who entered the transfer portal this year did not get a scholarship. And I think that it goes to my overall arching point that we've been talking about is the transfer portal has peaked, right? Not everybody can transfer everywhere all the time. And I'm not saying this is exactly what Izzo was trying to say, but there is, I think, some truth to it where it's like you can't, if adversity hits you, you can't just transfer out and try and bail out and do something different and hope it becomes better. Sometimes you just have to stay and figure out how to make it better. And that's what sometimes makes tougher people than others, I guess. I think that's maybe more job applicable or life applicable than it is college basketball applicable. I did love that Izzo said, "I'm unhappy every day." I thought that was pretty funny.
I did have to laugh at that. Such a miserable old man, but I did have to laugh.
But at the same time, I laughed. But it takes a miserable person to be a college basketball coach. Like it takes an addict essentially to
That's
be
true.
a college basketball coach. So I understand. Like, did Coach K ever smile for 55 damn years? And like it does take these type of people to be college basketball coaches. I'm going to be a bit more of an agreement with him though, where it's like, okay, and I'm not sure where you're at on this. I am in terms of the overarching point, but like at some point you have to, like I said, if you're going to commit, you have to commit to something at some point, and you can't just every single year you don't get what you want transfer around, because then all of a sudden you're a 7th-year senior that's never played a college basketball game before. So at some point, I feel like you do have to stick it out. And I know that sucks, and I know Gen Z would hate that they would have to go through any adversity at all to get what they want. But I'm not totally against what he's saying. I think he took it to a little extreme, but I'm not totally against what he's trying to say, where it's like you're allowed to actually sit on the bench for a year and become better before you transfer somewhere else.
So I can appreciate that. A few things that I want to point out, though, with what he was saying. Let me start with this, I guess. Tyson Walker's on your team, dude. He transferred from Northeastern, by the way.
Also that.
Like, can we discuss like that clip I played earlier in the episode? Tom Izzo was sitting 2 feet away from him. All right, fine. So let's start with that. Second of all, if we're going to limit it strictly to the folks that are transferring because they want more playing time or whenever adversity hits, okay, let me have that discussion. But I do not want it lost on people that players transfer for other reasons, more personal reasons, health reasons. You look at a guy like Dawson Garcia, right? Dawson Garcia's had to go transfer to transfer. He went from North Carolina, now he's at Minnesota. I think someone in his family, and he's from Minneapolis or he's from Minnesota, someone in his family, he wanted to be closer to their home, right? So that's a transfer. And if you're going to knock Dawson Garcia for doing that, I'd pretty much tell you to go to hell. But Tom Izzo, in my estimation, is like, so if we limit it to players that, like he's saying, you need to go through adversity. Okay. The problem I have is that these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds, all right, that I personally think are old enough to make these types of decisions. Now, we've seen multiple times where agents or parents or family members or someone are probably giving them bad advice, and that sucks. I just personally think I'd rather give them the autonomy to make those decisions. And if it doesn't work out, that's a good life lesson for you, for the kid. I truly think so. Now, Tom Izzo's out here trying to say that he wants to limit some of those and limit those bad experiences for kids. I don't buy that, Taylor. I'm sorry. I don't buy it. I don't buy that he cares that much about graduation rates. He said it. And what I have to do is take him at face value, but I'm just not doing it. He's talking about graduation rates. He's talking about fighting through adversity, things of that nature. Did you want Tyson Walker to single-handedly carry Northeastern to a Final Four? Or are you okay with Tyson Walker bypassing the adversity of the Colonial Athletic Conference and taking his talents to the Big Ten? I think that was okay. So I think that's all BS from Tom Izzo. And in this quote, Taylor, this was a bit of a Freudian slip in my estimation. He said, where does he say? First of all, actually, let me take it a step back. About the coaching thing. He says, yeah, I have flexibility. I can leave. I have millions of dollars of a buyout if I leave. I paid 40 years of dues to leave. Who gives a shit how many years of dues you've paid so you can leave? I think that's a garbage, nonsensical argument, the amount of time you've spent, right? If players could be eligible for 40, 50 years, maybe we would see more players playing for that long of a time. I think that's a garbage stance. But the thing that really got me, Taylor, is he said, quote, let me tell you something. This transfer portal is not going to be the best thing for kids. You get 45 days. If you think a kid is leaving, are you going to go out and get somebody else? Because you can't wait forever. Now it's affecting the kids you've got there. To me, Taylor, that is more telling than anything else. He cares about his program. He cares that if a kid, let's say if Matty Sissoko decides to transfer, he's pretty much saying, Sissoko, get out. You don't have 45 days. You have 45 minutes because I got to replace you. He only cares about his program, and that's okay. Fine. But don't BS me about graduation rates and looking out for the kids when you're berating them 24/7. They seem like adults when you're berating them. I don't know if my point's really getting across here, and I love Tom Izzo. This kind of goes back to our point about how
Tom Izzo is your boy. This is your boy.
He is. I'm souring though on his take regarding this. I think it's garbage. That's just that's my personal thoughts on these comments.
So I'm going to support maybe not support, but maybe try and understand what he's saying a little bit more. When I think part of what he's trying to say is that nobody's deciding to transfer day 29 or day 44. They've generally already decided by day 1 if they're going to transfer or not. And I think maybe that what he was trying to say in that, where it's like, it is a little bit bullshit. And I'm not necessarily trying to call individual players out, but like, oh yeah, I want to say, and they take all the way up to the end when they've already known that they were going to be out by January 4th. And they wait all the way until like May 15th. Now, again, if we're giving these 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds the ability to make these decisions, like you're saying, right? Like, hey, let's give them the full decision. Then we also can't give them necessarily the benefit of the doubt of saying like, oh, we're going to string the program I'm with along, even though I know that I'm transferring. I'm not going to make that decision until the 11th hour. So, I mean, I think that's maybe what he's trying to say. Maybe that's how I'm interpreting it, where it's like, okay, I've decided already by the winter break that I'm transferring, but I'm going to take all the way up until June 1st to transfer. That's a little tough because it is putting coaches. I'm not trying to say coaches are the people that are at fault here, but other players who might have the opportunity to play at a Michigan State, less of an opportunity to do so. So that would be my argument, in that is most people aren't deciding at the last minute that they are going to transfer. Generally, it's they've already decided are going to take up the entirety of the time, and that does handcuff college basketball programs and the coach's ability to work a little bit. I understand that like players do have to make the decisions that are best for themselves, just like any other student. I get that. I'm just saying I get a little bit what he's saying. It's like, okay, if you're going to transfer, you probably already made the decision to transfer way, 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 way before you actually filed the paperwork and left. And it is tough to backfill those positions if you're going to do that. So that's the only thing. I don't know if that's even a pushback. I'm just saying maybe that's a clarification of what he's trying to say. And again, I'm not Tom Izzo, so I'm not sure that's exactly what he's meant. But in my estimation, it's like, okay, if you're going to transfer, just tell me you're going to transfer, and then we can move on with this. Don't wait all the time to do it.
So I'll compromise with that. I can appreciate that. Look, I mean, but I will say, as things, and Tom Izzo has said as much in saying that the adults who make the rules are failing. That's fine. True. I agree, because if I'm a kid and I want to transfer, why wouldn't I take all 45 days? What onus do I have? And again, like, I'm always going to be on the side. I should say always. 99% of the time, I'm going to be on the side of the athlete, where like, this is the rule, coach. Like, what loyalty or why should I rush my decision
100%,
for the betterment of the program that I'm about to leave? I would flip it though. I would say, okay, if the player wants to leave, You don't want to use those 45 days, remaining days. Again, these are all just argument's sake. You don't want to use those 45 remaining days, Tom Izzo, to potentially flip them and convince them to stay. Are those 45 days or 44 additional days wasted? Like, it sounds as if when a kid makes his mind up that you're like, okay, I'm done with it. And that's fine. If that's the case, then that's fine. And you still have options in that scenario, Taylor. Let's say you're my coach and I come to you day one and I say, I want to transfer. And you say, I'm not even going to use the remaining time to try and re-recruit you here. You can go. And on day 43, I come back and I say, Taylor, I actually want to stay. I would have no issue if you / Izzo would say to me, Subi, we already replaced you, man. So you can come back, but you're going to be at the end of the bench, or we're going to have to figure out, and now you're shit out of luck. Like, these are scenarios that are still plausible to happen. But to your point about the timing, I don't want to get too deep on that. I can compromise in that respect, Taylor. I thought it was garbage when he's talking about the amount of years that he's put in, and that's why he can leave. I think it's garbage talking about graduation rates and things of that and getting a scholarship. I don't think he cares about anything outside of basketball that much. Maybe I don't know Tom Izzo that well. That's fair. But we don't know a lot of these coaches. For people that cape for all of these coaches, you don't know them. All right. Hate to break it to you. And so I think Tom Izzo was worried about his program, which is fine, but don't give me this other fluff. That's all I'm saying.
He does get paid to only care about his program, though. And I'm not trying to say that's for better or for worse. I would say that I don't think I'm pushing back on what you're saying. I just am saying another point that it's like, you also can't decide that you want to come back to a program after they get this is completely hypothetical because now we're hypotheticaling everything to death here, right? But like, oh, now they got the number 1, number 2 recruit in the country, and then the number 1 transfer guy. And like, oh yeah, Tom, I would like to come back now on day 44. Because then those guys, would go to the college basketball media and be like, wow, Tom's an asshole because now he won't take me back, even though he backfilled my position with 3 NBA players. It's like, well, you can't.
I would be on Izzo's side there.
Yeah, I'm just saying that's
fine.
I think that's part of the point that he's trying to say is it's like, and part of the thing that I've talking about for the last couple of episodes is we've gotten so player empowerment where it's like, okay, at some point someone has to make a decision, yourself included, where it's not like, oh, now I have 4 NBA players I can play with. Now I want to go back there. Well, that's not necessarily how it works. You do at some point have to commit to doing something. And I know that's probably not the popular opinion as it relates to player empowerment stuff, but you also can't just backtrack on your own decision and be like, oh, never mind, I want to be back here again. And I know that's not what Izzo's overarching point is. It's maybe more my point than it is his. I'm just saying that, like, there's a little more gray area than we like to think that there is in this, where it's, you can't just pick and choose when you want to be a part of something and when you don't want to be a part of something. And I think some of these guys, not all of them, or even the majority of them, but some of these guys are just picking and choosing when they want to be a part of something rather than being the person or the foundational point that the program is built on. I know that we're probably gonna have a little bit of a disagreement there, but at some point, this all has to come to an end at some point, or be a little more dialed in, because you're going to get more coaches who feel like Izzo and more coaches who feel like the transfer people, and it's only going to get wider unless we figure out a way to dial this in a little more narrow.
But I think that's okay. Like, I think it's okay that college basketball shifts and the landscape changes. And I'm gonna comp Tom Izzo with Dabo Swinney. They both have the same rhetoric as it relates to transfer portals.
This is true. Yes.
But the thing is, and I don't know if I respect it more or not, I don't really care. But what I'm seeing is Dabo Swinney not evolving, not adapting, and staying true to his word. And he's being left in the wayside. They are no longer the mountaintop. All right. And I'm looking at Tom Izzo, who's riding the coattails, or partially. And look, Tom Izzo is a Hall of Fame great head coach. I don't want it to sound like he sucks and I'm coming in hard on him. But he's also got Tyson Walker, who we mentioned. Wasn't Joey Hauser a transfer too from Marquette? All right.
The Hauser brothers. Yeah.
So, yeah, Joey Hauser was a huge contributor to Michigan State. So the point that I'm making, the thing that I'm just real quick, Taylor, is Dabo Swinney legitimately practices what he preaches, and they stink. Tom Izzo seems to be not practicing what he's preaching, and obviously they're continually going to be good. They're both great coaches, and I think Tom Izzo can get away with this stuff if he continues to evolve and coach as well. Like, no matter how great you are, man, we look at Bill Belichick. He's arguably the greatest of all time. He has like a 2004 NFL roster, and they're getting the brakes beaten off of him. So I just, like, I'm not saying Tom Izzo is going to stink this year or next year or 3 years. 5 years from now, 6 years from now, if he still has this mentality and eventually practices what he preaches, Michigan State may not be that good.
Well, this becomes a whole deeper discussion on can you adapt to what the workforce requires of you without agreeing what
There's your quote.
Yeah, right. It's that, like, okay, so maybe Izzo and Saban's the same way. Saban hates all of this, and I mean his team's not as good.
He's got Tyler Buckner at quarterback. Sometimes he's a transfer,
but it's just tough because it's like, okay, so if you don't, there's gonna be a divide between coaches who like a Dabo and a Nick Saban, coaches who agree with it but play to it, and coaches who don't agree with it or and don't play to it, right? Like you have to. It's tough because it's hard to just commit the hard line to this is how I feel, this is what I'm going to do. Well, then you might lose. And I don't know where that line is drawn in saying, I don't like this, but I have to do it to be successful. And I think that's where we're at in college basketball and college sports in general. It's just like, okay, so we know that Izzo doesn't agree with it, but we know that he's going to do it because it means to be successful. A guy like Dabo Swinney, he doesn't agree with it, and he's not going to do it to the degree that Izzo is, and that might cost him his job eventually. And so I don't know. It's hard to say that one guy is more wrong or more right than the other because everyone wants to keep their job.
I'd rather, if I was a fan, I'd rather Tom Izzo be my head coach. You can talk out of both sides of your mouth. That's fine.
No, totally. I'm just saying I understand where the paradox or however you want to phrase that is. It's like, okay, do I stand where I stand or do I stand where I stand, but then also reach across the line and make sure that things work out for me? Because in college athletics, there's nothing that's really black and white anymore. It's like it's super. There's more. You can go to Home Depot and find less like stages of gray on the paint wall than there are in college athletics now at this point, because that's pretty much where we're at. So I'm not defending Dabo by any means because you got to adapt, but I understand that you can't. There's no real footing to stand on at this point because you're always going to be wrong in someone's eyes in college athletics, and you can't be successful if you're in the wrong of most people's eyes. Let's put it that way.
No, it's good debate, good discourse here. I just rolled my eyes at some of that because, like, I do love Izzo, and it goes to our discussion earlier about like the fatigue and how much people love him. And I'm just like, you're such a great coach, and you look like a player's coach, and everyone loves you. But why are you trying to ruin it for other kids that want to transfer? Like, and it may not be, it's not 100% going to be the right decision every single time, everyone that transfers, but there are cases, by the way, of huge success stories. We've talked ad nauseam, where we literally have a segment on this podcast dedicated to all transfer teams,
right?
That are going to make big impacts. Like, it's just mind boggling to me.
Can we say though, that there is at least a little bit, like, because every coach is so afraid to say everything now and worried about offending anybody. Is there anything to be said about Izzo saying what his actual stance on this stuff is, or no?
No, I mean, look, I'm good with him. I just disagree with it. Right.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that every other coach is gonna be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna do whatever, and everything's gonna happen, and like whatever. At least, I don't know. Is there at least a little bit backing to him where it's like, this is what he actually feels, and he said it, which is all we're ever looking for as a huge member of the college basketball media, like you and I are. Like, we're looking for people to actually give their opinions on things.
Let me tell you something. Izzo is one of the very few that can give his unbridled and like uninhibited without any sort of pause. He can give that opinion because he is a Hall of Fame head coach. If Brad Brownell's out here talking like that, sorry to pile on Clemson coaches. Or if like
Jeff, you hate Clemson.
I don't, man. I don't. I love Clemson. All right, let me pick. If Earl Grant at BC is talking like that, you can't get away with that, man. You don't have the credential. You don't have the facilities for that big man like Tom Izzo does. I just disagree with it. But he's doing like his formula for success is clearly something that if he were to bottle up and sell, he'd be a billionaire. Great chat there though, Taylor. Let's move on now let's thumb our nose at Izzo and actually talk about the transfers that have come in to the Big Ten. Who are the big five on your list?
Boy, we've really dragged this along for quite a while here, so I'm going to make it quick. I'm going to go with Ace Baldwin. I mean, this conference has significantly less again than the SEC that are going to be, really difference makers, especially in the starting lineups. I think we started with the most transfer specific conference, but I'm just going to keep it quick with Ace Baldwin, Olivier, say his last name for me.
Kamwa, baby.
Thank you. Jamison Battle, Khalil Ware, as we talked about, and AJ Store. I think AJ Store is going to be a little better than what people are anticipating. But I think Khalil Ware is going to be the guy just because of their necessity to have him be the guy. So those are my five.
Can I tell you something without you getting mad? I love the Store pick. It came down to him versus Kamwa as my final roster spot. But I'm going to go with Khalil Ware. Actually, let me start with Justin Harmon. Justin Harmon, Chicago kid, back for the hometown team at Illinois. He's a really good rebounding guard, actually. He averages 4 rebounds per game, which is really impressive. Can he hold his own as a guard in the mighty Big Ten, in the physical Big Ten? I think he'll be a top 3 option for a team that could finish in that 4 to 5 range, top 4, top 5 in the conference. I told you it's that pudding or soup or cauldron of a web of teams where you got
yogurt.
Yeah, all of it. You got Illinois, Wisco, Maryland, Indiana, Northwestern. Justin Harmon for Illinois is going to be a really good contributor. Propelled Utah Valley to the NIT semis over Cincinnati last year. People forget, but I love how players can carry momentum from the NIT runs that they go on. And Justin Harmon did exactly that for Utah Valley. Khalil Ware, we mentioned, it's all about unlocking his potential and tapping into his motor. And if Mike Woodson does that, Coach of the Year. Ryan Langborg, he has personally victimized us. Taylor, the former Princeton man, now at Northwestern, can shoot the absolute leather off the basketball. He is a year removed from shooting 40% from 3. Can he recapture that? It's not like he was a bad shooter from beyond the arc last year. He just wasn't shooting 40%. If Northwestern can get that type of production out of Ryan Langborg, that'll be a great replacement for Chase Audige. Now, Chase Audige was a menace defender, but Langborg and Boo Buie, I like that combination there in Evanston. Jamison Battle did everything for Minnesota. You okay with him going to Ohio State there, Tom? Jamison Battle, is he supposed to battle through that awful Minnesota team? No, he did everything he could. I expect him to be a top 3 contributor for a team that should make its return to the tournament as a double-digit seed. I'm hoping Ohio State gets back, because if they don't, Chris Holtmann is then officially on the hot seat. The question is he going to feel comfortable yielding at times to Bruce Thornton and Zed Key? Because make no mistake about it, Taylor, Bruce Thornton and Zed Key are the 2 guys. That is their team. Olivier Kamwa, I go with as well. I think we're going to see a significant jump in his production, which is kind of a little bit of what you touched on. His role is going to increase from what we saw at Tennessee. He's either going to be Batman or Robin. Okay. It's him and Doug McDaniel. So Doug, you can be Batman some nights. Olivier will be Robin, and it'll switch. But those 2 are going to be leading Michigan. And this is going to be a bubble team, I think, which is what I said at the beginning of the program. I'm hoping Olivier adds a dimension of toughness to Juwan's squad, because I just feel like the last few years, Taylor, Michigan has not been tough. They get pushed around. And when they get punched in the mouth, that's it. They quit. Hands up. I'm done. I don't think Olivier Kamwa has that in his DNA, especially coming from a tough Tennessee and Rick Barnes type of team. I think he's going to be a major contributor there for the Wolverines. So I'm going to go Kamwa, Battle, Langborg, Khalil Ware, and Justin Harmon. Real quick, Taylor, I just want to highlight a few others. Lance Jones going from SIU to Purdue. We'll see if he cracks any sort of rotation. AJ Storr, glad you mentioned him. Jordan Geronimo going intra-squad or intra-conference, Indiana to Maryland. Josiah Alec coming over to Nebraska from New Mexico. Ben Krinke from Valpo to Iowa. Mike Mitchell Jr., Pepperdine to Minnesota. Good luck with the weather change, my friend. Adrian Baldwin Jr., ace, like you mentioned. And then Noah Fernandes from UMass over to Rutgers. But seriously, I'm being dead serious. Mike Mitchell Jr. from the beaches of Pepperdine to Minneapolis. Best of luck, my friend.
Going to be a great conference in terms of experience, just given the fact that we have. I'm not trying to say these transfers don't matter because they very much do, but like Purdue is the best example of this, where you're like, okay, a team, a traditional, if I may, maybe that's not even a word I can use anymore in today's world, a traditional college basketball team where the guys have grown up in this program, and we'll see how that juxtaposes against teams that have a lot of transfers in it. So that'll be fun to watch. A homegrown team, let's call it, versus teams that have brought people in. And again, we'll see how the transfer portal affects each and every one of these conferences. This one, I feel, again, is going to affect less, maybe Michigan State the most and Ohio State the most. Ohio State's such a funny program. Just a small note before we head out here. It's always a program that should be so much better than it is, and it's just not. And I just never understand, like, why is Purdue a better basketball program by 1,000 than Ohio State? That makes no sense to me.
It's a very fair question. And I said I do like Chris Holtman. I still think he can coach. But if he proves me wrong this season,
yeah, it's out.
It could get dark in Columbus for sure. He's got to get to the NCAA tournament. Taylor, before we leave and I let you get back to being a father, Big Ten trivia. Can I hit you with some?
Please do.
All right. Let's break a mental sweat for a second. Let's start off with this. I got 4 questions for you.
4? Oh, shit. Okay.
True or false? Jimmy King from the Fab Five was drafted to the NBA.
I don't think he was. No?
He was. He was. He was picked 35th overall by the Raptors and also played for the Nuggets. I think he had a 2-year NBA career.
35th overall?
35th overall.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
That's
Ray Jackson was not, though.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Sure. All right.
Which NFL team drafted John Havlicek? We're talking Ohio State. Which NFL team drafted John Havlicek despite never having played college football at Ohio State?
Wow. I thought I went deep on the last one. This is a very Boston specific trivia too. Which team?
Who's a team that's awful at drafting? How about this?
The Chicago Bears.
It's not a bad. It's in the Midwest.
The Cleveland Browns.
It's the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, there's like.
I'm sorry, Taylor. I thought this was. I thought it was fun. Maybe I should have given you more of a.
No, that's beautiful. I love that. He never sold the ball in the NFL, I assume.
No, he didn't. They gave him a shot as wide receiver in training camp. Drafted him 95th overall, and I think it only ranks. One spot ahead of Brandon Whedon getting drafted as one of the most miserable picks from the Browns. It's like John Havlicek, Brandon Whedon, and Johnny Manziel.
That's beautiful.
Number 3, SVG, our friend Stan Van Gundy. I didn't know this. Coached this Big Ten school during the 94-95 season. He went 13-14 there, only one season.
Minnesota.
Wisconsin. Did you know Stan Van Gundy was the head coach of Wisconsin for a year?
When did Bo Ryan get there? The year after that?
Not even the year after. I think there was someone else the year after.
Yeah, because they had to be in that amount of time. Bo Ryan, hold on. We talked about this with Greg Gard. Is Bo Ryan the smallest amount of time that we think of a coach who was there for a long amount of time? Because we know that he wasn't there in 94 and he wasn't there in 2015. Like, that's not that. I mean, I know it's 20 years, but I mean,
that's true.
We think of these other coaches as being there forever, and Bo Ryan was just old. Bo Ryan wasn't even that old, actually, when he was there either, by the way. Like, Bo Ryan retired when he was like 69 or something crazy like that. So, yeah.
If you told me,
I'm not going to body shame on this program. I'm just saying not exactly what I would expect it from Bo Ryan.
I mean, if you told me him and Barry Alvarez were in lockstep on the football field and basketball court, I would agree with you.
Can't hate on Barry Alvarez and his
Sweater vest.
though. Yeah, like
It's
no
true.
Jim Tressel, but maybe Barry Alvarez had better sweater vest.
Barry Alvarez is the only redeemable Wisconsin person. Is that fair?
University of Wisconsin person. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
The good people of Wisconsin. I mean, yes. Okay. So yeah, Stan Van Gundy, 13-14, coaching Wisconsin that one year. He had Michael Finley on his roster too, which is crazy. Crazy to think. All right, last one. Who is the only man to win National Coach of the Year for Illinois?
Was it Underwood? Is that recently? No, I don't know.
It was the last time they were in the title game.
Oh, really? So what, 2001 or 2005 then?
2005.
Oh, wow.
Do you know who it was?
Was it up? It wasn't.
It's
Bill Self? Was it Bill Self? No.
It was after.
Yeah,
Bruce
who was
Weber.
Yeah, Bruce Weber. God damn it.
Yeah, I knew
right.
you knew it. I knew you knew it.
Yeah, right. But you don't associate. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Bruce Weber, National Coach of the Year there.
Talk about peaking and then only heading down the hill after that, essentially.
Yeah, had some good years at Kansas State.
Yeah, but not like
not like that. No. Hey, what do you think? Go ahead.
When Bill Self left when 2000 the year before that?
I think it was I think Bruce Weber succeeded him.
Yeah, right. Or it wouldn't have been long. Yeah. Huh.
So not a bad couple of back-to-back years there for Illinois, like coaching wise.
No doubt.
What do you think Bo Ryan would say about the transfer portal? He would not be thrilled.
No.
Thank you as always for listening. That was a great breakdown of the Big Ten and a heated debate regarding the transfer portal. Taylor, let's hit the Big 12 next, baby. These predictions are rolling on.
That's gonna be a good one.
Catch you next time here on Theater and College Hoops.